Welcome to Unit 2, Propaganda Mythbusting. Propaganda is a mysterious term for most people. It's one of those terms that we all think we know what it means until we try to define it. So let's start this lesson by exploring some common myths. Then we'll undertake a longitudinal word study of propaganda from the turn of the century to the present. And finally, we'll conclude with hammering out a working definition of propaganda. Okay, let the fun begin. First, a lot of people believe that propaganda is simply telling lies. Think Hitler and the big lie. And that's an aspect of it, certainly. It can be part of a propaganda campaign, but it misses the mark as the essence of propaganda, so don't be fooled. Second, propaganda isn't piddly disinformation. What do I mean by piddly disinformation? It means you and me publishing on social media via video or whatever and passing it around Facebook. That activity is not a grave threat to democracy. Because first of all, who are you? Who am I? Who cares? That's just random information, or noise, if you will. If you're really being taken in by something from people you don't even know and have no reason to trust, then God help you. I mean, that is not a major propaganda threat. It has a minuscule life on the internet, even if it does go viral. And you see the top of the iceberg here? That's what I'm talking about. All this bottom part is the real threat. Okay? So it's a very, very small portion of society and overall makes a small dent in the sea of misinformation. And thirdly, and it took me a long time to get past this, but it's the right versus left hologram. That's what I call it anyway. If you're on the right, you tend to think, I understand my side doesn't always tell the truth, but we are much better than the other side. If you're on the left, you think the same way. Yeah, we have some bad actors here and there, but overall, we've got the truth more or less. The other guys are dead wrong about most things. Basically, finger pointing one way and then finger pointing back the other way. Round and round we go, with never-ending sniping and attacks. If you're stuck here, you're not going to see true propaganda. I can't emphasize this enough. And I don't expect that you'll agree with me right now, but just stick with it, and hopefully over the duration of this series, you're going to see things differently. Fourthly, pay no attention to the recent emphasis on fake news that started around 2016. All of a sudden, the sky is falling with propaganda. Meanwhile, as I will demonstrate, the real harmful stuff has been going on all along, and this recent crisis is nothing but a smoke screen. It's not where the real action is. And on a related note, the recent emphasis on ridding the world of fake news has spawned a whole new industry of verified truth. Well, first of all, you can never outsource truth. Think about it. Some entity is saying they can define truth for you. The very thought is preposterous. You are completely flying blind as to who is behind these fact-checking sources. It's like trusting the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain to determine what is truth for you. Don't get caught up in all these myths, sideshows, and shallow waters. They are not the real thing, and we are on the hunt for the real deal, which is actually quite alarming and wickedly powerful. True propaganda in the 21st century is a leviathan. That guy, right, is a juggernaut, a Moab, mother of all bombs. It is something so friggin' powerful that it almost can't be defended against. But we're going to attempt to fix that. And secondly, true propaganda takes a ton of money to implement. A ton of money. So don't let anyone tell you that piddly disinformation, that one video that's created, even though it's on social media, is some great malign influence. It can influence on a small scale, don't get me wrong. You and I, the average human being, did not have enough money to be executing what I call 21st century propaganda that has been growing and metastasizing since World War I, gaining in power and expanding its seductive capabilities. Propaganda functions more like a malign marketing campaign than anything else. The challenge is to transform and attempt to sell something that you know will not be welcome, okay, into a demand for the customer. So generally speaking, if I have to sell something to you that you don't really want or think you need, I've got to work and work hard. But if I can get you to clamor for what I am offering, it's like alchemy. It's a great power. to transform a sell into a demand from the consumer, and true propaganda does just that. Now, let's transition to a short word study on the use of propaganda, starting around the time of World War I, which was about 1914 over here. And this is a graph with usage on the y-axis and time on the x-axis. Germany and Britain started doing propaganda on a large scale at the start of World War I. Okay? And by the time we entered the war, talk about propaganda was steadily increasing. Until the end of the war, at which time discussion about propaganda really exploded. So here we go. This is this explosion right here. Okay, people were upset and angry about the use of government-sanctioned propaganda and the vast amounts of resources committed to it. People all over the world felt betrayed by their governments and by their leaders. As a result, this powerful new phenomenon peaked at this time. Okay, Howard Laswell, a political science professor from the University of Chicago, published a bibliography in 1938 of all the studies done worldwide on propaganda and related topics since the war. His 300 and some page book is filled with studies. Practitioners and advocates wanted to learn how to harness the power, and detractors wanted to define and curtail it such that never again would it be utilized on such a grand scale. Then came World War II, right here. At that juncture, something amazing takes place, and we kind of learned about this last week, but the word becomes almost exclusively associated with enemy propaganda. It's like the words enemy and propaganda get welded together, like peanut butter and jelly. The Allies had a righteous cause and only told the truth. Therefore, the term propaganda was applicable only to the enemy. And following the war, an interesting thing happens. The term propaganda gets swallowed down the memory hole, especially as it relates to American use of the new and growing technologies. Okay? So to the uninitiated, it might appear that the problem posed by propaganda had been solved. But instead, study and advocacy continued unhindered through a myriad of other disciplines, now broadly disseminated and largely out of the public eye. Terms like public relations, marketing, public opinion, polling, manufacturing, consent, and crowd psychology. As they say, out of sight, out of mind. This transformational technology could now grow stronger in the shadows without oversight and accountability. So now nobody's really talking about it, and it's very, very dangerous down here at this level. If we fast forward into the 21st century, all of a sudden it's raining propaganda again. There's fake news, misinformation, disinformation, oh my God, and a critical need for a whole new industry of fact checkers and verified truth, which is what we already talked about. So, but excuse me, doesn't it seem as though somebody's laid to the table? What's really going on here? Okay, why the hysteria now as though this is some new thing? Could there be an agenda afoot to censor the speech of the little guy, the alternative media, in the glorious name of preserving the truth? Grab the moral high ground and save the day. Now that's a great storyline. Don't try to sell them on the need for censorship. Get them to clamor for it, to demand it, and to diligently seek it themselves through fact-checking sites so that the world can be made safe from falsehood. See how that works? Before we finish up, let's take a quick look again at what these terms actually mean, because I've been using them a lot during these last couple of videos. According to the dictionary, misinformation is the spreading of information that is mistakenly believed to be true. If I'm passing something around on Facebook that I think is true, but it isn't, I'm distributing misinformation. Disinformation, on the other hand, is defined as deliberately spreading false information. But we really already have a name for such toxic behavior. It's called lying, or slander, if it's false information about another person. I'm never a fan of watering down terms that should have strong connotations. It reminds me when Brian Williams, the former news anchor, acknowledged that he misspoke. Nope, sorry, he lied. He didn't misspeak. These are Orwellian terms that corrupt language, but more on that at another time. The term fake news refers to false or misleading stories presented as news. But as we shall see later, this idea is not new at all. Edward Bernays, One of the godfathers of propaganda recognized the potential and power of camouflaging propaganda as news. It was as devious as it was brilliant. In summary, the essence of true propaganda in the 21st century is the con artist. That's the image I want you to remember. It's all about trust and betrayal. It's the art of deceiving the public into believing, accepting something that's not true. And usually that's constructed or manufactured problem. And it's also the art of inducing the public to demand, desire, take action in a way that is detrimental to their interests. It is based on the very old phrase, order out of chaos. Highlight a problem and then propose the solution. Except the solution benefits them, not you. So can you see this? This is huge. I want you to really remember this, okay? Take a snapshot of it, or it's actually in your workbook, okay? In the end, they have conned you to ask for the very chains which they have sought to bind you. In the next unit, we'll start examining the godfathers of propaganda. See you then.